Hello, Janginis. Before we get started, Rich and I want to let you in on some even more exciting updates for our Patreon subscribers.
As you know, Patreon is a site where listeners can pledge a small monthly amount, either $5 or $10, to support the cost of bringing you your favorite podcast. All patrons get early access to new CutOff Jeans episodes before they're released to the public.
But the most exciting new perk is that all of our patrons will be able to listen to an exclusive bonus episode of the podcast every other week. Topics include personal stories that I'm not ready to share publicly, conversations with family and friends.
And sometimes we'll devote an entire episode to other subjects we love, like musical theater or classic television.
Rich and I enjoy bringing you the CutOff Jeans podcast, and it would mean so much if you would consider supporting our labor of love.
Just go to patreon.com/cutoffjeanspodcast.
Thank you so much, my Janginis.
And now, on with the show.
Is your family tree a mystery? Are you fascinated by genealogy? Well, hip hip hooray, let's talk DNA with Julie.
The truth is in your genes.
In CutOff Jeans.
Welcome to CutOff Jeans, the podcast that helps you find your truth using nothing but DNA. I'm Julie Dixon-Jackson. I'm a genetic genealogist, henceforth known as a Jangini.
And I am Richard Castle, the co-host and producer of this wonderful podcast. Hi, Julie. I saw you going by in an arc earlier today. There's so much rain here in Southern California.
So much rain. It feels silly to complain about it, considering it's so rare here.
I know.
But understand, I mean, it's being described as a river.
An atmospheric
the amount of rain
river.
that we're getting.
Yes.
And Southern California is not equipped for this much water at one time. That's why it's so precarious, because, you know, if we're fine because we live in the flatlands.
Yes.
But in the hills, because of all the fires, there's always danger of mudslides. It happens every season. It happens every time there is torrential rainfall here.
I know.
Because we're not equipped for it, even though the hillsides are supposed to be pretty secure, but things happen. And especially when so much extra debris is there because of the fires in the hills.
Yeah.
That is when there's a danger of what am I trying to say?
Slip sliding away.
Yeah, slip sliding away, and it happens.
You know who else is not equipped for all this rain? My dog.
Oh, yeah, mine too.
Yeah, he does not want to go out in the rain, and I'm like, well, you need to go to the bathroom, so we're going out in the rain.
Also, you know, I work in a hair salon, and things like are dead.
Oh, right.
When that happens, because people in California don't know how to drive in the rain, and so they don't want to come get their hair done.
Right, and they figure, why get their hair done when they're just going to have a bad hair day with the rain?
Right. All of those things. But it also has it feels like Seattle today. Mm. And I love Seattle, but the constant drizzle is very depressing to me. I'm one of those people my moods are very much dictated by the weather.
I feel the same. You know, like I'm easily depressed in the sunshine, but just as soon as the clouds come over, why bother getting out of bed?
Yeah.
Hey, listen.
Yeah.
This is a DNA podcast, and I just read an article in the New York Times I want to bring up. I don't know if you saw it, but it was an interesting take on donor conceived children, and it was about people being able to see their birth certificates and all of that, things that we are fighting for in adoption reform, and the fact that it's affecting in some of the states that do not have laws that are friendly to LGBTQ people, that is affecting them negatively, because they would tend to use donors for to have children, and that in cases where these parents might get divorced or something, if they are not biologically related to their children, they are considered not family members.
I think what it is if it's a same-sex couple, the one whose sperm was used, I guess, is considered the biological parent. And the other one, because perhaps gay marriage is not recognized in that state, they don't have rights.
Right.
I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, but I mean, they were talking about in terms of if that parent who is not biologically related does not adopt that child, then
oh yeah, that
then
does
they
happen.
would have no rights.
And non-biological parents, even though they're both the parents, do have to adopt a child for them to be legally their parent.
Is that how it works? Really?
I believe so.
Even if you have a donor conceived child.
Donor conceived children, I'm not sure 100%. There is a huge push right now in the donor community because it's still not regulated. You know,
right.
The donor there, it's just not at the top of anybody's agenda, obviously, but there, people can still donate multiple. They are moving towards regulating the system to where there is no such thing as an anonymous donor anymore, and that donors can't produce more than, I think it's 10 children, which is still outrageous.
Well, did you hear about that beauty contestant that just had her 8th child and then went into a beauty contest? This has nothing to do with adoption or any kind of surrogacy, but she had her own 8th child. 8, mind you.
8. Yeah, and it was like a few days after. She sounds like a freak of nature that her body can still withhold that, and she can walk on a stage in heels and a bathing suit.
Well, you figure after 8, it's sort of just like passing gas,
I guess. I don't know. Some people are built for it, and some people are happier when they're pregnant. I am not one of those people. Yeah, so that is interesting. Like I said, there are, I don't know what you're talking about. If you find it, can you put it in the Facebook group?
Yes, I will.
Specifically, because there's a lot of movement in the donor conceived community regarding this, which is obviously an offshoot of the adoptee community and the NPE community.
Right, it's interesting how
they're
overlaps.
all related in one way or another. Okay, I'm going to start with the latest episode of Finding Your Roots.
Okay.
Sammy Hagar was the subject, and it's always very interesting. They really delve into family history and what they can find out about these families. And by the way, they have like at least a year to prep these shows, to do all the research.
Okay.
So it's pretty amazing that I can do it in like a week. I mean, I can't get into the depth that they do, but,
Yeah, well, I mean, they're also producing a whole video content show,
yes,
right? Yeah.
Yes, and they're trying to make it as interesting as possible for the participants and the viewers. So,
right.
If there's no NPEs or anything in there, they need to come up with as much interesting history as they can that they can prove, the provable history.
Nobody wants to hear about a history of a bunch of goody two-shoes.
Of which there are none in any family, or any family is not all good. Anyhoozle, Sammy Hagar was on, and turns out... Actually, I saw something about it on one of the NPE pages, and they said, oh, Sammy Hagar is an NPE. And so I watched it. I hadn't watched it yet. And he himself is not an NPE. I mean, he is, but it was actually his great-grandfather who is the NPE.
Okay.
So they discovered that he's actually not a Hagar.
Huh.
And they do know what he is. But they don't know that. They know who his great-great-grandfather is, I believe, but they don't, or great-great-great-grandfather? Yeah, his third great-grandfather. But he had 10 sons, and so they were not able to pinpoint which one was actually the father.
He had 10 sons?
Well, yeah, it's the 1800s.
Well, I mean, but the fact that they
were
all sons, that's amazing to me. Right?
Oh, there were probably daughters, too.
Oh, my God.
I mean, there was nothing else to do back then.
Well, all I can say is that the wife of that man who gave birth must have been one hell of a beauty contestant.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, methinks that there was more than one mother. That's usually the case.
I
mean,
see.
I'm making an editorialization right now. But
Right. I thought that he could probably trace his roots back to Hagar the Horrible.
I knew you were going to say that. I was wondering which one of us was going to bring up Hagar the Horrible first.
I don't even know if I know who Hagar the Horrible was.
You don't know who it is?
No.
It's a comic strip.
Oh. Of course it is.
It's just a comic strip that's been around since we were kids.
That's where I saw it. Okay.
Yeah. That's
Like
fine.
next to the Wizard of Id, right?
I don't know that
Oh
one.
my gosh, really? Okay.
No.
Maybe they didn't have that in Australia.
Maybe not. They had Hagar the Horrible, though.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. Well,
Yeah. I bet. What does that mean? Okay, so that is my story about Sammy Hagar. Oh, he's an MPE, and he said when he found this out, or his great-grandfather was an MPE, when he found this out, he said his mind is blown. And in a very insightful moment, he said, I'm not sure how I feel, but check back with me in 6 months. Because that is so true. When it's always a slow burn when you find this information out, and especially on camera, you don't know what to think of it, and
Sure.
it's a slow burn. Like I said, you as time goes on, you start to process what this means for your identity and for your family.
Yeah, I agree
You know what
with
I mean?
that. I think I personally would find it harder the closer the relative to me, whether it was one of my parents or my grandparents, somebody I would have actually known.
Oh, yes.
That would be a lot more difficult to process than to find out that my great-great-grandfather was an NPE. And then I'm like, well, it's harder to think that far back
Certainly.
in terms of before your
Yes.
time, before anybody you knew. So you're still who you are, whoever that is.
Yes, I agree with you. It's certainly the same thing happened to Julia Roberts, where she's not a Roberts a few months ago. But yeah, it's definitely different. And I think if he had been an NPE, much like what's her name, the actress that we talked about a few weeks ago, from Scandal.
Oh gosh, Kerry Washington.
Yes, Kerry Washington. They discovered it, right at the beginning and contacted her immediately and said, before they put anything on the air, because imagine finding out on TV that your parents aren't your parents, or your father is not your father.
Yeah, it's like the worst kind of like, this is your life,
Yeah.
This is what you thought
It's very
your life
Maury
was.
Povich.
Yes, right. Oh, yeah. I had to go back to the 60s or the 50s for This Is Your Life, and not to like just 10 years ago with Maury Povich.
I think Maury Povich is still doing it. I don't know. Okay, so that is that.
I love that I had to like really think hard about who the actress was, that it was Kerry Washington, but I had no trouble pulling out Hagar the Horrible.
Well, that really is all we need to know about either of us, isn't
Exactly.
it? All right, back to DNA. I don't know if you've heard this, but 23andMe is in trouble.
They're always in
trouble.
trouble.
It has been for a while, but it's especially now. So this is from CNN.com. Just 3 years ago, DNA testing company 23andMe was the golden child of Wall Street and Silicon Valley. Today, the firm is at risk of being delisted from the NASDAQ. The 23andMe CEO, Ann Wojcicki, tells CNN that Wall Street shouldn't count her out yet. Despite the firm's initial popularity, the former tech unicorn's funds have dried up and its value has dropped a stunning 96% since its peak share price of $17.65 in February of 2021. Shares of 23andMe are now priced at about 70 cents. And in November, the company was informed that it was in violation of NASDAQ rules that require a company to maintain a stock price above $1. That means it has about 3 months to bring the price up or risk being delisted.
And why is this? I mean, why do you think? I mean, I've heard a lot of things about security?
I think it's a combination of the security issue a few months ago, but also keep in mind, 23andMe is not a subscription service. You take the test once and then you're done. It doesn't have, there's no tree building in there. There's no research capabilities in there. And most people don't respond to messages. So it's not great for genealogists other than you can get a really close match. But oftentimes you don't know who they are.
I see. Mm-hmm.
And they don't respond.
I remember like when we first started doing this podcast, you were actually more in favor of using 23andMe than Ancestry.
No, I wasn't.
Really?
Nope, never have been. Nope, never.
Was there another one then that I'm thinking of?
And I mean, GEDmatch.
Which one had the painter program that you liked? There was like a painter.
Oh, DNA Painter.
Yeah.
That's DNA Painter. Oh, okay. So 23andMe does have a chromosome browser. But that, if you don't know what you're looking at, that's not helpful to anybody. And most people take 23andMe for the health reports. That's the bottom line. But it's so interesting to me because the amount of people, whenever I talk to them about me being a genetic genealogist, every single time they're like, oh, 23andMe. Always they'll list that before Ancestry. And I'm like, no, Ancestry. I mean, 23andMe, yes, I think everybody should test in every database. But as always, Ancestry is the go-to. And I do have something to tell you about Ancestry in a minute, too. But I just want to finish this article about, and I'll tell you why, what's going on and why they're failing.
Okay.
So when M. Wojcicki saw an opportunity to change the business of genetics, she took it. Wojcicki and her co-founders bet that they could provide consumers with health and ancestry data by sequencing just some of their genome for under $1,000. Back then, it was $1,000. They eventually brought the price down to $100. Their bet paid off. The company's retail DNA test was named Invention of the Year by Time magazine in 2008, and their DNA database blew up with more than 100,000 customers by 2011. They went public in 2021, and their market capitalization soon soared to $6 billion.
Wow.
But their fortunes have shifted. The company recently came under fire for security breaches. We all know that. That impacted 6.9 million users and has struggled to find a way to keep customers engaged with its products after they used the one-time DNA kit. Wojcicki says she and 23andMe are now heavily focused on drug development, but that's an expensive and risky endeavor that could take decades to pay off. One more immediate concern, the company has yet to turn a profit, and 23andMe could run out of money as early as next year.
Oh, dear.
She says the problem has more to do with a downturn in the biotech sector than internal issues. We did layoffs last year, she said, referring to the 3 rounds of cuts and the sale of subsidiary that reduced their staff by about a quarter. But we're not alone in this biotech downturn. And so what you have to do is you have to cut back and you have to prioritize on the programs that you think are the most important. We've been caught in the downturn along with the entire industry. Ancestry is doing fine. We're absolutely exploring what our options are to prioritize our best assets. We can't do everything we've done. We can't do everything we've done. I don't know what that means. That's what happens in this kind of market. So Wojcicki says that the future of 23andMe is in harnessing their DNA database to find cures or treatments for cancer and autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, and Crohn's disease. In 2018, 23andMe agreed to a 5-year exclusive drug development partnership with GSK, former GlaxoSmithKline. The London-based pharmaceutical and biotechnology company also invested $300 million in the company. In 2022, they exercised an option to pay $50 million and extend the exclusive contract for another year. And last October, they paid another $20 million for a non-exclusive data license. Most of the data 23andMe has collected isn't available to the public. That makes it hard to analyze the company's value. But these deals give important hints about the company's viability as a DNA data provider. So I think the goal from the beginning was to capitalize on pharmaceutical industry and to use the data, which you have to opt in for your data to be used,
right,
to develop cures and pharmaceuticals
That's an odd way to market your company as a DNA, tester, and then but also be using the information for pharmaceutical research. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad. It's just it's an odd way to spread yourself across industries.
Right. Well, I guess they wanted to differentiate themselves from Ancestry.
Yes.
And they do, but it's not, as a genetic genealogist, it's not helpful. It's barely helpful to me. The only time I've ever solved anything without using Ancestry was when there was like a very close match, like a first generation match.
And it's also, it's like market share. Like, because Ancestry has so many people that test with them, they just have more. You're more likely to be able to do a tree and find your matches to them. Yeah, the more people.
Absolutely.
Test.
So, and on that note, let's talk about what's happening at Ancestry. So Ancestry is pulling back more tools to non-paying subscribers and making everything subscription-based. So as of now, you can... While you can still see your DNA matches, you can't see their trees, I don't think. Whenever I look at somebody else's account, if they're not a paid member, I can see part of their tree, but it'll usually cut off after the next generation. And anyone who's still living, I can't see anyway. But also, they have taken access to possibly the most useful tool on Ancestry, which is Through-Lines. Now, if you're not a paid subscriber, you can't use Through-Lines, which is huge, because Through-Lines does basically what I do, only it does it quickly, and it's not a perfect, like, I still have matches in my Through-Lines that they're telling me how they think it's connected, and it's absolutely not connected that way. So it's certainly not perfect, but it's my more distant matches. It's really helped me to confirm that my tree is correct by how distant matches match me.
I see. Yeah.
If that makes sense. But anyway, you can't get Through-Lines now unless you're a paid, which for people who are coming to somebody like me, I do all of my research on my own account anyway. And I pay for everything on Ancestry because I need it.
Right. For your business.
So,
yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if they're coming to somebody like me, they don't need to be a paid subscriber, because as long as I have access to their DNA in my account, I can build it for them. But a lot of people are up in arms about it, saying, why would they take this away from us? And the bottom line is, it's still a business. Very rarely do you get something for free.
True.
But if that happened all the time, nobody would stay in business.
It's sort of like Amazon Prime Video has started showing commercials, and you're like, well, we paid for this so that we wouldn't have to watch commercials. And so you feel like something is being devalued,
taken away,
yes. And that is never a good feeling,
I get it.
And as far as Ancestry, I understand their business, but I really, really hate when you have a new hint, and then you click on it, and in order to see what it is or whatever, you have to sign up. And I'm like, I wish,
and that's when you call me.
Yeah, exactly. But I wish that they would just say that in the email, and then I would know, this is just an ad, and I'll just delete it, rather than, I don't know, it feels like bait and switch in a way. Like, we're going to show you something, and then you get there, and then there's a paywall.
This is the world of bait and switch. I mean, how many links do they say or start with? Wait till you watch it at the end, or wait till you watch this till the end, or you won't believe what this. And it actually has nothing to do with anything. What's it called? Clickbait.
Clickbait. Yes.
So that's what's happening in DNA.
Well, good. Let's take a break, and we'll reconvene, and we'll talk more about it when we come back. If you're enjoying our podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review, or consider supporting us on our Patreon page, patreon.com/CutOff Genes Podcast. Now back to Julie and me.
We're back, and I'm here to tell you a harrowing story.
Oh, dear.
that I found on the interwebs. So an anonymous woman wrote into The Atlantic's Dear Therapist column to unravel a situation. She explained that her husband had 2 kids on his own, and she had none when the pair tied the knot. The couple both wanted to have a child together, but since her husband had undergone a vasectomy years prior, which could no longer be reversed, they had to find another solution. In the letter she sent to the publication, the unnamed woman wrote, "We didn't want to use a sperm bank, so we asked my husband's son to be the donor." Ooh. We felt that was the best decision. Our child would have my husband's genes, and we knew my stepson's health, personality, intelligence. He agreed to help. Our daughter is now 30. How do we tell her that her father is her grandfather, her brother is her father, her sister is her aunt, and her nephew is her half-brother?
Oh, my God.
Understandably, the woman concluded, my husband and I are anxious, confused, and worried about telling her. This is also hard on my husband because he wants our daughter to know that he will always and forever be her father. So why didn't you think of this years ago? In response, columnist Lori Gottlieb, who is a qualified psychotherapist, said that there were two truths that the woman's daughter would be forced to grapple with. Not only the revelation that about her biological father, but also that the people she calls her parents have deceived her for 3 decades.
Right.
Gottlieb then went on to offer advice on how best to broach such a delicate subject. First, she said it was essential to state the facts as simply and clearly as possible before apologizing. That's the key word there, apologizing. The expert urged the mom to take full responsibility for not telling her daughter the truth from the beginning, being sure not to make excuses. She explained how it was important for the woman to talk as little as possible during the initial conversation and instead prioritize the thoughts of her daughter. Very well worded. Last but not least, Gottlieb also warned that the brother in this situation should also be told that the information is going to be shared in case he has a family of his own that he wishes to tell ahead of time.
Oh, my. Wow. How to even start unpacking this? Like, why at 30 did they decide that she needs to know?
Well, because they probably realized that she's going to find out some way eventually. She's probably said, hey, I'm going to take one of those DNA tests.
Yeah.
Even though
it would be pretty close, right?
It would be pretty close, yes.
How'd you like to be the person, the genealogist, looking at that and going, wait a minute, why is this so close? It's such a close match, but yet not quite close enough.
Well, but a genealogist would only, or a genetic genealogist
that's
would,
what I meant.
Or somebody who really knows how to read the DNA would be like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Or if the brother has taken a DNA test, he would come up as her father.
Right.
Yeah.
I just want to go back to that conversation. Like, how did they even broach the subject with the son, who was obviously at least old enough at that point to donate sperm? Mm-hmm. Your stepmother and I want to use your sperm and have a child. I mean, that's just, I don't know. That just sounds icky to me. Isn't that, am I,
No, it's
trying to
gross.
have an open
even
mind,
if,
but
here's the thing. The fact that they planned on keeping it a secret or could never find the time to explain it to her. I mean, yes, as a toddler, it would be weird to say, that's actually your real daddy. I mean, I understand that. But there are certain things that they should have been talking to her about since before she could understand.
Yeah. I mean, I remember years ago, my husband's sister wanted to have a child with her partner, and oh my God, I think my mother-in-law said, why don't you ask Rich to donate sperm? And I just thought, I was icked out by that.
You know what? I know a couple who's done that. I know a same-sex male couple who used one of their sisters to carry their children. Like, they used her egg. And also, she was pregnant. She carried the twins. And I think that is different, though, because she has a mother in her life, which I think is important.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I think all children need not two parents, but they need a mother figure. And if at all possible, to know who their genetic family is, I think that's the most important thing of all.
I was icked out by that back then, and this is bringing up those memories of that.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yikes.
It's such a weird like, people don't think about when people will infantilize babies forever. And they don't, they'll make choices for babies without ever thinking that babies are going to grow up and have feelings about themselves and their history.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I mean, again, just the idea, I guess if I even remove the fact that they asked the husband's son to donate sperm, even if I remove that part of this from the story, the fact that they spent 3 decades not telling their daughter that she has different parentage than she thought,
I think they thought that they were going to get away with it and would never have to tell her.
Again, unfair.
Because she is genetically related to him. So.
Right. Like exactly.
Right. So why would she have questions? It's so weird.
There's a unique story I have not heard on this podcast, which is saying a lot.
Isn't it amazing how much is out there? Okay. Hey, should we take a break now?
Let's do that. Thank you for listening to CutOff Jeans with Julie Dixon Jackson and Richard Castle. You can support us by going to patreon.com/CutOff Jeans podcast. Now, back to the program.
It's story time, but we're not going to tell a story. You have something to tell us.
I do. I have a story to tell.
Okay, tell a story.
It's the story of 184 episodes, as far as I can count, of CutOff Jeans that started 6 years ago in 2018.
Oh my God.
I had to go back and look.
Yeah.
When we started this little dog and pony show right here in this room. And when I look back and think, oh my gosh, I can't believe we've done that many episodes. We didn't know what we were doing. And it's been quite a ride. And I've decided, because my life has gotten very, very busy, that this is my last episode.
Yep.
It was a hard decision, and because I'm used to it, and I kind of love seeing you and having this appointment. And I thought, well, I can still have appointments with Julie, and we'll just go out for drinks and we can talk about whatever we want.
We don't have to record ourselves whenever we talk.
But I really wanted to take this opportunity to say several things. One, I've learned so much on this podcast. I mean, about things I never knew about, or had never, if I had thought about it, I hadn't thought deeply about them. And I credit you, Julie, and I credit our listeners and the people that you've interviewed and, who've been kind enough to come on our podcast and tell their stories. I've learned so much. I've always had empathy for people who are adoptees or, anybody who feels like they don't fit in, because I've always been that myself. But now I understand it in a much more rounded way, and I see a lot of different aspects of the triad from each point of view of the triad. I think that's really important. Everybody has the right to know where they came from.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say that I can't imagine having done this without you, having started this. And it started, you guys, 6 years ago when I was probably at the lowest point in my life. And I knew that I needed to somehow make lemonade from the lemons that I was constantly tasting on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And I had wanted to do a podcast and didn't not know where to start. And it's so funny because you had invited me over to your house to sing some songs for some demos, and it suddenly clicked with me. Wait a minute, Rich has a recording studio, even though we don't use it in person anymore. I mean, you're there, but we're in our own houses now. But it was kind of like a no-brainer. And I remember I took you to coffee and just threw it out there. And you didn't know anything more about it than I did, except for you were a little more technically inclined, I guess. But I don't know if I can ever thank you for taking that leap with me and for spending all of these hours listening to me and editing these podcasts and being just the greatest co-host and producer I ever could have had. Oh, am I getting emotional? So to the listeners, this is not the end. I'm going to figure out what's happening going forward. I'm going to take a few weeks off and regroup and figure out, because I'm not going to do it completely on my own, but I have a few ideas of moving forward, how it's going to do. Maybe we'll change the format a little bit. I don't know, but I'm giving myself some time to regroup and taking a family vacation with my entire family for the first time, literally in 10 years. So
oh my gosh.
We'll be
Where
back.
Are you going?
I know. We're taking another nerd cruise.
Oh, how fun. Oh my gosh.
But the whole family is coming this time. So
that's exciting. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I'm really excited.
I'm going to be taking this time to finish this musical that I'm writing called Reality Trip.
Yep.
And hopefully get Julie in here to record some demos too.
Anytime. And so we have not made money off of this podcast at all, except for, we've certainly received a little bit of help from the patrons. Thank you so much, patrons.
Oh yeah. Thank you, Patreon members. I mean, really.
But I owe you demo sessions for the rest of our lives. So you will never have to pay for me to sing.
You don't owe me
again.
anything, but I will say that I always love having you over to sing my material. And the thing is, guys, that my musical is going up at Northern Sky Theater in the end of August, early September, and it's going to run for a couple of months. But I'm still writing it. So I'm deep in the thick of it. My last shows that I wrote took several years to write, and I had more time. And because this show has been put on the fast track, which is a wonderful thing, and it's exciting, it just means that I need to devote so much time to getting this done so that the actors have something to say when they go on stage.
Yeah, that would help.
In September.
Maybe I'll make it up there this year.
Yeah, right.
I should really try to do that.
But
in the summer.
Before we go, I do want to thank our listeners, our Patreon subscribers, everyone who's said a kind, remark on the Facebook group. I hope that you continue to follow Julie and CutOff Jeans in whatever form it is in, whatever she chooses to do, because Julie is somebody I've known since I was 18 years old. And we go way back, and she's the real deal. She's the real deal. So please support her in any way you can. She's such a real deal that she came by earlier today, like a little elf, and dropped off something.
Okay, yes, I do have something for you that I thought was an appropriate parting gift that I made. And I want you to open it so you guys will be able to see it. If you're a patron, you'll be able to see it because I'm recording this and I'll put it on the Patreon. But you can go ahead and open it now.
Okay.
And it's not a big deal. I'm just,
It's beautifully wrapped.
Wait, that is leftover Christmas paper. Yes, it is. That's all I had. All right, he's opening it. He's ripping off so he, I guess, doesn't want to use that again.
Oh, it's my tree.
It's your family tree.
Oh my God, that is gorgeous.
Okay, so yes, it's a large family tree. It's one of those family trees. Don't look at it too closely because I did it in pencil before I was happy with my font.
It's really, really beautiful.
And there are there's a couple things still written in pencil because they're not confirmed. And if you'll notice, especially on the left side, on your dad's side,
yes,
there's your Irish side kind of disappears. And I really looked into it a little closer, and you appear to have two Sweeneys, one on your grandmother's side and one on your grandfather's side.
Huh.
So I am not sure if that's correct. I looked at your other trees of your matches, and they're different. They don't seem to know any. It's like they copied each other, and it's very difficult to look at. Especially Sweeney Sweeney is such a common name, a common Irish name. There are some other, and Coyle is a Coyle or Boyle, whatever that is in your tree.
Boyle, yeah.
Boyle, yes. There's a very, very common name. My husband has them in his tree too. And then on the other side, your Jewish ancestors, once they're in Lithuania, I lose them. So it's still a work in progress. So there are still some squares to be filled out, but I wanted to at least start that for you and for you to have that.
I love it. It was so thoughtful. And what a wonderful, wonderfully thoughtful gift to have on my last episode of CutOff Jeans.
Well, I'm glad to have been able to make that for you. I wish it could have been fuller, but yeah, it meant a lot to me. Hey, I love you so much, and
I love you too, Julie.
I can't imagine not having you in my life.
Ditto.
Okay, we should get out of here because I'm crying now.
All right, Julie. I think that if you'll allow me, I would like to have the tagline today.
What a great idea!
Which we've never done in 184 plus episodes. But I want everybody to know that the truth is in your jeans.